APUSH. What's up, you guys? My name is Jeffrey, and today we're going to be discussing the American industrial giants as well as the Transcontinental Railroad. First off, we got the Transcontinental Railroad, which was built using land grants and subsidies along with the purchase of 20 miles of land on either side. It connected the Central Pacific and Union Pacific Railroads and underwent construction after the passing of the Pacific Railroad Acts of 1862, which was passed because the Southern Democrats from the time were not in power and the Republicans pushed it through. It was significant because for the first time in America, goods from the West Coast could be shipped to the East Coast in under 2 weeks. This made transporting goods faster, cheaper, and more flexible, and it also had use in transporting goods during wartime. Here's just four of the great American industrial giants of the time. You have Rockefeller, which was oil. Carnegie, his business was in steel. Vanderbilt was shipping and industry. And Pullman designed and built railroad cars. So Rockefeller's empire was built upon the oil industry. His company was known as Standard Oil. Rockefeller practiced horizontal integration, which was basically controlling other companies but producing the same product. He also implemented trusts and lowered railroad transportation costs. How did he do this, you ask? Well, through rebates and kickbacks. Rebates are discounts on shipping, and as for kickbacks, he basically told railroad companies, hey, from now on, if you want to keep my business, you need to charge my competitors more than what you charge me, and then give me the extra profits. That's what kickbacks are. Yes, they are illegal. At the height of his empire, Rockefeller controlled 90% of the oil industry in America, which was equal to 1.5% of America's annual GDP at the time. And if his wealth were translated into today's dollars, he'd be the richest man on earth with about $340 billion. Next up, we got Carnegie. Carnegie's main business was steel production. Carnegie implemented vertical integration, which was controlling each step of production, so he basically owned the iron mines, the modes of transportation to the factories, and the factories as well. Carnegie is also famous for writing the Gospel of Wealth, which basically says that rich people should use their money to help the poor. He also encouraged competition between division members so that they would compete to produce the most goods. Unfortunately, this resulted in several strikes, most notably the Homestead Strike. This strike was basically the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Union Workers versus Henry Frick, a plant manager. It all started because Henry Frick was told to increase production while lowering wages so that a strike would occur and Carnegie could get rid of those pesky union workers who wanted higher wages. Frick began locking out the strikers and then rehired new workers. He then hired 300 Pinkerton mercenaries to fend off the strikers. However, they were, as you can see, not widely accepted when they reached there. The Pinkerton guards were sent off, so Frick appealed to the sheriff, who then convinced the government to send a militia of 8,000 troops who eventually ended the strike. Here's just a photo demonstrating horizontal and vertical integration. As you can see, Carnegie is involved in vertical integration, and Rockefeller over here, he's involved in horizontal integration, which is basically just purchasing a bunch of companies that all produce the same thing, which for him was kerosene, aka oil. Next up, we have Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was involved in the railroad industry, and he started out shipping goods via water routes between New York and Boston, and then acquired several railroads. He was basically the shipping god of the time. Vanderbilt practiced consolidation, which was the purchasing of smaller lines and then combining them to provide direct service to major metropolitan areas. This is a map of Vanderbilt's railroad lines. As you can see, his main area of where he basically started occurred between Boston and all the way over here to Chicago. His railroad lines then branched out to other areas in the northeast.
Oh, east? I thought you said west.
And that's pretty much all he did. He just shipped stuff all the time. Next up, we have Pullman, who specialized in producing railroad passenger cars. Pullman introduced the idea of company towns, which was brand new at the time. These towns were owned by his company and included clean, well-constructed housing for employees and included shops, churches, libraries, theaters, and all sorts of other things people wanted. One special thing that each home had was indoor toilet facilities and running water, which was an uncommon thing at the time. However, employees weren't always satisfied. The Pullman strike of 1893 occurred after the Panic of 1893, which caused demand for Pullman cars to decline. Workers were laid off, and Pullman introduced a pay-per-piece work, which basically resulted in less wages for workers. The workers went on strike for 2 months and the government was forced to intervene. This is just a photo of police brutality during the American Industrial Revolution. Just kidding. None of these big corporations wouldn't have gotten to the great heights as they were if it weren't for laissez-faire capitalism, which basically is the government hands-off the economy type of thing. The pros of this are that competition between companies lowered prices and businesses made their own decisions. However, this unfortunately led to workers being exploited like low wages and high hours, and monopolies being formed, which is pretty much what the Standard Oil Company was. The US government has learned over time that sometimes government intervention is necessary, and so they intervened over time through the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, which helped transfer from state intervention to federal intervention, and then passed the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, which was used in 1911 to tear down Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company into 36 competing companies most of us know, such as ExxonMobil and Chevron. And finally, we have reached the last section, which is the philosophies of wealth that were written at the time. These included social Darwinism, which basically applied Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest to the economy and society at the time. Once again, Carnegie shows up with his gospel of wealth, stating rich should give money to the poor. Carnegie's wealth was worth about $309 billion in today's dollars. However, his family only received a small house, whereas the rest of the $309 billion was sent off to charities and other organizations. He's known for saying, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." Well, if I was in his family, I'd be pissed. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll try to roll out another video within the next few weeks. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to leave a like and comment down below about anything you'd like to hear about.